Y'all ready? Senior night here versus Appalachian State at 7 o'clock at Williams-Brice. And before I get started on this week, I want to again thank our fan base for last Saturday night. It was starting Gamecock Walk, 8, 10 deep as we're walking in the stadium, and it makes a difference for our football team, and certainly the game day atmosphere is as good as anywhere in the country. And you make a difference for our team and more than anything for our players, and it's really important. And I can't thank you enough and appreciate the positive support. It hadn't been the season we necessarily wanted to record-wise, and certainly appreciate you guys. A very important night for our seniors, 25 young men that have represented themselves, their families, and the University of South Carolina in a first-class manner. 11 of these guys have already graduated. 11 more will graduate in December, and then 3 more will graduate in May. So all 25 will walk out of here with a diploma from the University of South Carolina. And some of them are going to be walking out with multiple diplomas. 6 guys are currently right now in graduate school. Danny Fennell finishes grad school in December, and he's going to leave with 2 degrees. His undergrad was in global supply chain, which I was a speech communication major at the University of Georgia. Number 2 on the list was global supply chain. And if I had done that, I may not have ever met any of you guys. But his graduate degree, I'm totally joking. His graduate degree is in the International Business School, which is the number 1 ranked international business school in the world. So that says a lot about him. He did an internship this summer with contract construction with Greg Hughes, who built this building. Went to Japan to do work overseas, and just a tremendous future. Matt Oliveira and JT Bay will both finish in grad school in May. 5 of the guys that will walk for the game have opportunities to come back. Obviously, Jake Bentley, who's meant so much to this program, extremely disappointed for him and what, his injury his senior year. Been taken away from him, and it hurt for him and his family, and he's done so much at the University of South Carolina in our football program. It has an opportunity to come back here to South Carolina for another year. Bailey Hart, who's in graduate school as well. Jalen Foster, who will graduate in May. And then Cedarius Hutchinson, who will graduate in December, and Kyle Markway, who's already in graduate school and in spring semester will be moving into the business school. So those 5 guys have not made any decisions. We will have those discussions in December when the regular season is over and move forward. But certainly wanted them to have their opportunity to walk if they decide not to come back. So 10 guys from our first class: Jake Bentley, T.J. Brunson, Chavis Dawkins, Rico Dowdle, Brian Edwards, Cedarius Hutchinson, Javon Kinlaw, Keel Pollard, Kobe Smith, and Dennis Wanham have all been integral parts of our program in these 4 years, and done a fantastic job of a great example of how we need to do things the right way. 7 guys were already here with Coach Spurrier's staff, and I really want to recognize those guys because going through a coaching change is really difficult. You lose your head coach, you lose your coordinator, possibly position coach. So many changes in the organization happen. And, Michael Almond, Joseph Charlton is the best punter in the country. Mon Denson, who's been a very valuable member of our team as a running back and a special teams guy. Danny Fennell, I've already kind of mentioned. Kyle Markway, who's having had first couple years, had some injury issues in the last 2 years, has played outstanding football for us. Donnell Stanley, who's been the bedrock of our offensive line the last couple of years, and A.J. Turner, who has had a very frustrating senior year. And really 3 guys, and I kind of spoke on Jake a little bit and how frustrated we are for him, his injury in the first ball game, being a 4-year starter here at the University of South Carolina. Keel Pollard, a guy that's going into his senior year, worked so hard to get to that point and gets medically disqualified because of a neck issue that we saw in training camp. It just breaks your heart for a young man like that. And then A.J. Turner, who's done so much for us as from a running back perspective, so unselfish last year, goes to corner, plays corner for us, a huge special teams contributor, has done everything we've asked, had the injury there in camp, and then struggled with a hamstring throughout the fall. So those guys' senior year certainly individually have not gone the way that they should have. But as I've said before, life's not fair, and we've got to handle it and adjust and move on. And those 3 guys have handled things certainly the right way. 3 graduate transfers who've been great. Tavian Feaster's come in here and done an outstanding job on and off the field. Matt Oliveira and JT Bay, both who I spoke about already, will have their graduate degrees in May. So I'm really proud of those guys. I'd also like to recognize Spencer Easton Riddle, which I think y'all already did. The All-State Africa Good Works team, one of 22 student athletes in the country, for their community service. their service to their community. And Spencer is, a guy that has come in here, walked on, earned a scholarship. His undergrad degree was in public health, and he's now in health administration, and will finish his graduate degree in 2021. But really proud of him, and he's got another year, and he'll play with us again next year. And really proud of him and his contributions to South Carolina. But App State's got an outstanding team. 19 of 22 starters are juniors and seniors, and most of them have been redshirted. So they have an older, very experienced team that's won a lot of football games. A lot of respect for Coach Drinkwitz and his staff that he's hired. Obviously, Coach Satterfield did a great job there and moved on to Louisville. But Coach Drinkwitz and his staff have done a fantastic job of just picking up where they left off and continued to roll there. Offensively, Zach Thomas was a Sun Belt Player of the Year last year. Is an outstanding quarterback, can make all the throws. He has legs. He can extend plays, but he's a guy that's very efficient in running their offense. And Eli, of course, calls the plays and does a really good job. They've got a stable of backs in Evans, Williams, Harrington, and Anderson. All are very capable. All have top-end speed, finish speed down the field. They've got a talented core of receivers in Hennigan, Williams, Sutton, and Virgil, who's a 10-200-meter, runs on their track team. Very good in multiple at the tight end position, and probably the most athletic offensive line. They're not the biggest offensive line, but what they ask them to do in the running game, they're looking for more athleticism than they are girth and power. Defensively, Ted Roof is their defensive coordinator. They've remained an odd structure, which is what they have done before and what they had recruited to. But Demetrius Taylor's a fantastic player up front, very disruptive. An outside linebacker, Akeem Davis There's a very active guy. And on the back end, Josh Thomas is a guy that really shows up. But I think they got 8 or so starters back on defense off a very experienced, good team. And special teams, Eric Lincoln is their special teams coordinator and a guy that I'm very familiar with and got a lot of respect for. So got a good football team. Injury-wise, Rico, Brad Johnson, Damani Staley, Dylan Walnham, Shy Smith, and Kier Thomas all practiced today and should be ready to go for Saturday. Tavian Feaster and A.J. Turner would be questionable right now. And then Jalen Nichols is out. Nick Muse and Josh Van are obviously out for the game, and I'll open up for any of your questions.
Will, with Tavian, is it something you guys have to get him scanned for? Do you have to keep an eye on that going forward, or was he out there?
No, he's just a strained groin, and we're just kind of working through that right now. And didn't do a whole lot today. We'll see what he can do tomorrow. Mm-hmm.
Well, is there a special bond between a head coach and the first recruiting class, especially when you come into a situation where the program is coming off a bad year? There's a coaching change and a lot of uncertainty.
Sure, I think that these guys will always remain special to me and this staff that have been here, and appreciate their contributions. And you see, that's why I purposely read through some of the things they've done off the field to show, what they've meant to this program. For the first time in school history, last fall semester, our cumulative GPA as a football program was above a 3.0, and then in spring semester we did it again. So a lot of very positive things. Again, I'm disappointed from a team standpoint. We haven't exactly had the year we wanted to have, or we anticipated to have. It's been very inconsistent. That's on me. But very proud of their accomplishments here at South Carolina.
Will, going off from that, being able to recognize these seniors before the game on Saturday, what do you tell some of these younger guys? Because I'm sure as it gets closer, they start to realize, all right, I'm going to be a junior next year if I'm a sophomore, and do you have a message for those guys?
I do, and I tell them every year, but unfortunately some of them don't listen. And I tell them all, we sit in our team meeting, the seniors sit in the front and the freshmen sit in the back, and they work their way down by year. And I'm looking at the top today saying you have no idea how quickly it's going to happen and how quickly it's going to turn for you. We had a senior meeting this morning, and some of them said, you tried to tell me, and I'm starting to realize I got 2 left at Williams-Brice. And it's tough, and but you got to cherish every opportunity, cherish every moment. And we've got great examples of guys that have taken full advantage of the opportunities you have here at South Carolina for our young players. Yep.
In terms of scheduling, how much say did you have in kind of making this contract with App State? And if so, just what was the appeal of bringing them down here to play?
I think this was done before we got here, but we talk a lot with Chance Miller and Charles Waddell and Coach Tanner on all scheduling. And, we're attracted to playing the best teams we can play. And they certainly have a good football team. But this, I think, Colin, what was done before I got here. I'm not positive on that, but I think it was.
Yeah, well, going off of that, App State's kind of the exception. Obviously, I think I read today they rank 6th in total wins since 2015.
Right.
But are you a fan of the games against the Group of Fives or the FCS, or would you rather try to get a Power Five team in here?
No, I'm a fan of the opportunity, whether it's Appalachian State, which I agree with you is the total exception, but having the opportunity to play anybody you want to play, and in that situation, and that's kind of where we're set up right now, and I don't have a problem with the model we have at this point.
With Tavian possibly out and the way Fenwick played last week, how much do you expect Fenwick to play this week, and kind of what's the pecking order at running back now?
Well, we're working through that right now. Mon's got a little bit of a strained neck. He practiced today. He took every rep that he would have normally have taken. Rico was back and looked good today. And obviously Deshaun did some nice things Saturday. And then Kevin Harris. So we got 4 guys we have confidence in.
What kind of stands out with Zach Thomas as sort of a talent and a guy you have to prepare for?
Well, I think that, number one, he's got a lot of game experience. I think he's very talented as far as he anticipates throws very well. The ball's in the air a lot of times before the receiver's coming out of a break. And that, to me, is hard to teach as far as anticipation is concerned with a quarterback position. But he can make all the throws. He's got good arm strength to throw the ball down the field. He can zip it. He also can put touch on it. He's got a very good feel in the running game, and they do run him at times as far as some different things that are design runs for the quarterback. But he's also able to make off-rhythm plays in the pocket. So he creates a lot of issues for you defensively to be able to constrict the pocket correctly, to not get displaced on a 3rd and 6, 3rd and 9, and all of a sudden he's scrambling. He had a couple of huge scrambles against North Carolina early in the year, one for about 40 yards. It was a killer on 3rd down. So, to be able to make off-rhythm plays at that position always poses a threat, but you've also can't sit there and sit in zone with eyes on the quarterback knowing that he'll complete a lot of passes in zone coverage because he's a very effective quarterback throwing the football. So he does both equally well.
Would you have anticipated Aaron Sterling would be your sack leader at this point in the year?
I wouldn't have not anticipated it. Certainly, I feel like we've got some other guys, that maybe coming in the year that had a little more attention as far as that's concerned. Aaron's done a really good job in our Rabbits package of rushing inside. And you would not look at his body and think that he'd be a very effective guy inside. But we worked that in training camp, and we felt like that he was a very good option for us to get he was one of our 4 best rushers, and he had developed himself and worked his traits to be a really good inside rusher. So he's worked extremely hard, to go against sometimes much bigger players and be able to be an effective rusher inside. What does he do effectively in there? He number one, his feet never stop. And that's critical, especially if you get stoned early in the down to continue your feet move. And his long arm is outstanding to get people off of him because he is not necessarily the tallest guy, but he does have long arms, and he's able to get guys off of him. And generally, he's a better athlete against most of the guys he's rushing on inside, and he realizes that. But he does a really good job of reading a vertical or horizontal set and how to attack the blocker from there in the pass rush. And he's also got some guys getting some other attention. So he's created some one-on-ones.
On the topic of defensive line with 3 guys with 4 or more sacks, I think it's the only team in the SEC that has that. What has been the overall key to the defensive line success this season? Being really unselfish and understanding that, based on how we want to call a game, understanding you may not be the feature part of the game, but do your job and be willing to eat 2 blocks, and you may end up being the free guy at the end of the day. And I think that this has been a very unselfish group as far as those things are concerned, because, sometimes it's, in order to eat the double team, which Javon's had to do and never complained and created a one-on-one for somebody else, and he understands that. And anybody that knows ball watching the film understands that. So those are all things that I've really been pleased with how unselfish the group has been to understand those things.
With Nick out, Will, who was running at that other starting tight end spot?
Well, Keyshawn Toney's been taking a lot of reps, and Trey Kenyon's done a nice job. Trey got injured in camp and then had the ankle and missed probably about a month. maybe 3 weeks. And for any young player to miss that much practice time, it's really hard to catch up. It's just really hard. So right now, teaching him more of just the game plan of this is what we're going to do, necessarily going back of when we're in camp, teaching more concepts of what we do offensively. So we're just trying to catch him up as much as possible, and he can still play in 3 more games, I believe it is. I don't have my sheet in front of me.
Do you guys still plan on utilizing the 2 tight end set a lot, or will you have to scale that back?
We're not changing.
Well, the common theme from players today was that App State does a lot of pre-snap motion offensively.
Mm-hmm.
As a coach, how do you coach that to tell players what to key in on, maybe pre-snap, to know where the ball may be going?
Sure. I think that, Colin, in every defense, in all 11 players, there's a pre-snap key. So as an on-the-line player, your eyes are going to be either on the guy you're lined up on or an adjacent player. From a linebacker standpoint, generally our keys are in the backfield, whether it be the offset back, whether it be what we would call the sniffer, the offset tight end. Depending on the run game, it could be the back that generally we'll have. As a corner, your general keys are either the guy you're aligned on or somebody adjacent inside, whether it be a tight end or a number 2 receiver. And then depending on coverage, your safeties are going to be aligned on either a tight end, a number 2 receiver, a nub side, keying through the uncovered guard on the backside if you're a spun down safety in some form of sky force. I mean, those are all different keys. So every defense has a different key. And then when motion occurs, sometimes that key could change based on who is motioning. And that's where they try and get you a little confused. But they do a really nice job of creating a lot of window dressing as far as motions and things are concerned, but then also mixing that with tempo. So you can't not get a line, get your cleats in the dirt, get your eyes in the right spot, and all of a sudden the ball's being snapped and they're going fast. As opposed to they also mix the tempos with a motion then a reset, a motion then a snap. So you've got to just be alert in what you're trying to do and have your eyes in the right spots. But I think eye control's critical for us on Saturday.
As a coach, just what is it like to see Kyle Markway reach this point after everything he went through in your first 2 years when you were on campus?
A lot of injuries. Went to Missouri our second game, our second season, and was injured in the game in front of his family. They were there for that. So a guy that just continues to persevere and fight and understand that 10% of life's what happens to you, 90% what you do about it. Handling it the right way, staying positive. Just continuing to come into work every day with the hard hat mentality to achieve what he wanted to achieve. And he's worked himself in. He's a really good football player. And he's been very productive for us his junior year and senior year, and he's got another opportunity to come back for another year.
How big has Brian Edwards been for the development of Ryan Helinski and his quarterback play this year?
Well, there's no question to have somebody that you have a comfort level with, that you depend that they're going to make a play for you, that you can throw a hitch, you can throw a screen, you can throw something that's a quick game that you don't have to make a huge decision on, and a guy can crease it and make a 30-yard completion, which gives you a lot of confidence, which gives our entire football team confidence and our offense confidence. So there's no question to have a guy like Brian out there that is dependable as he's been for us this year. It's a huge aid to Ryan.
App State's obviously got some guys who y'all evaluated when they were recruits and all that. Do you talk about that with your players when you say, hey, you're going to be going against guys who probably maybe feel like they should be here instead of you, or does that even come up when you're meeting with your team?
We just evaluate what we see on tape. As far as, we try and be very honest with our guys about our matchups and where we are and, those sort of things.
And Ernest Jones has former teammate Trey Cobb, one of their inside linebackers.
Mm-hmm.
What have you seen from him on film since
good
he's
football
been
player, runs extremely well, has got some very similar attributes as Ernest is called. I believe he makes all their calls defensively, but is a good football player.
Conversations with some of the guys with eligibility left on, what are those conversations like when you do sit down with them, and kind of what's been your advice to guys who are maybe making a decision?
Well, I think, Colin, in probably Kyle and Sedaris Hutcherson's, situation is both guys have finished school. Both guys have aspirations to play on the next level. What input do we have from the NFL for, where their evaluation would be? if they were to be drafted, where would they be drafted, and to kind of give them as much information as we can from that standpoint. It's not what I think. It's not what one of our assistant coaches think. It's not what their parents think. It's not what some agent thinks. It's what the NFL thinks, and it's what there's 32 teams. It's the beauty's in the eye of the beholder, and so where do they see them fitting on their draft board is basically the question would be. And then if they were to return their senior year, or their last year or their 6th year or whatever the case may be, what do they need to do to improve that draft status? And those are all questions that we try to give them as much information and understand that, we're going to support their decision 100% no matter what. We're going to give them the information. It's their decision. It's not my decision. And whatever they decide, we're going to support it. One of the great stories ever is a guy named Gerard Powers, who played for me at Auburn, one of my favorite players of all time. And I was at Texas. He was still finishing at Auburn, but he had graduated, which he promised his mom he was going to graduate from school. He had graduated. He had another year of eligibility left. And his big knock, he was 5'9". And he called me. I was a defense coordinator at Texas. I said, well, if you're not going to be a first-round pick, I'm going to tell you to go back to school. And he said, well, yeah, you also said if I can improve on some things and come back to school, then I need to. He goes, the biggest issue I've got, I'm 5'9". You know what I'm going to be next year? I'm going to be 5'9". And I said, well, you got a point. So he played for 12 years in the National Football League and retired on his call, nobody else's. So to give you an example that, sometimes it's just time to move on for some guys, and I totally get that. So, but our job is to give them the correct and right information from the National Football League of what is their draft status and where do they project to be drafted. Because, you can hear all the mock drafts and all that, but most of those are probably very incorrect at this point.
Well, what makes Thomas...
Coach, yeah, go ahead.
What makes
I was going to bring you a hat and whistles today. And I agree with what you said last week. I didn't want you to think I was cutting you off. I do agree with you that we need to run him more in those situations, but we're not going in the wishbone with him, I can tell you that.
What makes Thomas Brown such a good teacher, and what sort of future do you foresee in coaching for him?
He has a huge future, and a very demanding guy in a very positive way. Thomas coaches like he played. He's a blue-collar guy that has taken a lot of ability that he had and turned it into even a better player than he was because of his mentality and his approach and his blue-collar mentality. He's very bright. He's very intelligent. He has been in a coordinator role before, and he has a tremendous future in this profession.
Was there mutual enthusiasm in him coming here, or did one of you guys want that transaction to happen more than the other?
Well, I think it was pretty mutual. We talked one day, and he was here within 48 hours, and he had brought his entire family and his wife and Jessica and his 2 boys here within 48 hours, and they'd moved in the house. So I guess we were both pretty motivated at the time. But when you're out of work, you get motivated pretty quickly. But he and Brian McClendon obviously were very close before and had worked together before. And I'd actually recruited Tucker High School where Thomas played. We signed a young man named Nico Thorpe at Auburn. It was a year ahead of Thomas from Tucker, and I knew Thomas coming along, and then I left to go to Texas the next year. But he he was an outstanding player at Tucker and then an outstanding player at Georgia, having competed against him.
Well, will Brian stay in the box this week? And
Yeah.
what did you see? What did he see? Really, I guess is the main question
I
that
think
you can't on the field.
you just see the game better upstairs, and then sometimes you may miss some things on the field. You got a lot on your plate as far as calling plays and making adjustments within series. There's a lot that goes into that, and I think that just being able to make sure that we got the communication on the field, which we did, and Dan did a very good job with Ryan and DeCarry both on the field, and I think that worked better as well. So I think there was two sides that were better for us at the quarterback position, at the receiver position, and play calling 3. All right, have a great day.